Evening and welcome to the Gersnet Podcast. This is episode 204. My name is John McCallum. This is the independent Rangers podcast made by fans for fans, where the content is free. I'm hosting tonight, so needless to say you wouldn't pay anyway. There's a forum, there's articles, there's social media. Gersnet forum's always worth going on. There's anonymous people there who'll call you all sorts of hideous names if you say something that's slightly controversial. It's why I've been going on it for about 15 years. And of course, it's a podcast, which is where we are tonight. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome. If you're a regular listener, then it's good to have you back. I hope you'll stay for this show and then come back on Sunday when the proper people are presenting. If you are a subscriber, please share us on social media, spread the word. It's always nice to get new people on. I need to mention sponsors before I forget. So, Forest Precision Engineering, and to be fair, these guys do a good job of helping Frankie and us keep this place on the air. So, if you're in a position to support them, please do. They subcontract Glasgow-based engineering company. They've been a big commercial sponsor of Rangers for many years. And we are really pleased that they are backing our pod. You can visit them at forestprecisioneng.com. They also have the Forest Precision Executive Lounge, which is a stunning hospitality area within the main stand. And if you would like to book that or would like some more information on that, email the club via hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Right, that was a bit I didn't want to mess up. On with the show. So I'm joined tonight by, I was just saying beforehand, no longer a young one or a newbie, but somebody now who's been with us for a couple of seasons. I'm joined by Dougie tonight. Dougie, how are you tonight? Have you had a reasonable week? What's been the highlight of the week for you?
Good evening, John. Can you hear me okay? Because there was a wee bit of kind of background in my headphones. Good man.
Okay.
I have had a terrible week. I am glad it's Friday. My youngest has chickenpox. So it's been great fun trying to balance childcare and work. So I am delighted it's Friday. It's day 5 of chickenpox, which means that it's now beginning to get to the end. So I have sat down for the first time this week. I have got myself a beer and I'm ready to chat about Rangers.
Great stuff, Dougie, great stuff. Yes, I remember the children going through the chickenpox phase. It's a lot of fun, isn't it? You have my sympathies on that. Highlight of the week for me, actually, was a meeting one of my Rangers heroes for the first time. People might be surprised because he's a local guy, but I'd never actually met Ian Durrant before, and I bumped into Ian Durrant this week through work. In a place I didn't expect to meet Ian Durrant, not in any way connected with football, and it was one of these strange moments when I was actually being introduced to a 3-time Super Bowl winner, who was an absolute physical giant of a man, and who, of course, I had no idea who he was. I'd never heard of this guy before in my life, despite the fact he's apparently one of the most famous sportsmen in America. And standing 3 or 4 people away from him, I'm thinking, I don't know who that big guy is, but that's Ian Durrant. That's definitely Ian Durrant. So I got to shake Ian Durrant's hand. So that was a highlight of the week for me. I've never met Ian Durrant before. I was a big fan of Ian Durrant when he first broke into the Rangers team. He was a good guy.
Do you know, John, there's always these questions that you see on Twitter of what past player would you like to have seen injury-free? And obviously the kind of obvious main ones is guys like Ronaldo, the real Ronaldo. But Ian Durrant, from a Rangers perspective, always springs to mind. What could have been if it wasn't for Neil Simpson?
I know, and you're not wrong. And he actually was wearing a kind of support, one of these kind of support bandages on his knee. I did notice that.
Was he?
He was, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess Ian Durrant's in his
was he borrowing it from Callum McGregor?
No, that's not nice. All right, I'm going to move on. I'll move on now. So, it's been a tough week again. I know you're particularly upset at the loss to Liverpool, but let's put the Eurovision Song Contest behind us and talk about the Champions League match that we witnessed on Tuesday. So we'll start on that and we'll go through and we'll talk about St Mirren. So look, let's start at the beginning. The starting lineup. We started with a back 5, which is not obviously Gio's preferred way of playing. were you surprised at that? Was that something that you had seen coming? It's not like Rangers to go with a back five. Did it surprise you? And overall, did you feel it worked?
No, it didn't surprise me, actually. I've seen Gio deploy the back five a couple of times in Europe last season, the Europa League. So I think the formation was probably the right formation, and we'll come on and talk about the difference in standards in a moment. I think when you're going to Anfield, you're playing against Liverpool, you know how they're going to play. You need to keep it tight at the back. And I felt that the five at the back allows us to do that. There was a couple of surprises in the team. When I predicted five at the back, but I predicted Lundstrom being one of the back three centre-backs alongside Bolton and Davies. But I think Leon King came in. He's 18. He's done a great job, Leon King, for a young lad coming into such a big occasion. But I did expect Lundstrom in the back five. Other than that, I think other players in the team did surprise me as well. I think Tillman's a big surprise for me. I'm a big fan of Tillman, but I think it's very clear now that he's not a wide player. I think he needs to be playing through the middle, behind the striker, as his best used position so far. But I don't think it was a game for Tillman either. Not just because I don't think he's suited to that right hand side. I think Liverpool at Anfield required workers and grafters and a bit of physicality, and I think Tillman still got to learn that. Personally, when I was kind of designing my team, I had Arfield in that position, and I know that Arfield wasn't brilliant against Hearts. I think he covered a lot of ground against Hearts. He got himself into the right positions, but his final ball was really poor, and I think that's probably a huge factor why he didn't start. But I had Arfield for his engine. For me, beside Lundstrom, when Lundstrom was selected as centre mid, I had Ryan Jack. It's probably not a surprise that Stephen Davis has came in, because we know how good Stephen Davis is, but I think Stephen Davis looked his age. And I know we'll come on and talk about the predictions for the lineup against St Mirren. It wouldn't surprise me if we have one eye on Liverpool, either in the starting 11 or with how we use the subs. And personally, looking ahead to Liverpool again, I think Ryan Jack needs to start. I think we need Ryan Jack on the pitch from the start, hopefully. But yeah, they were the three main surprises for me from the team, but I wasn't surprised by the formation.
I mean, I assumed when I saw the back five that obviously we were trying to keep it tight. Liverpool at times looked like they were playing a 2-2-6. They're all, it's all attack. They've got such wonderful attacking players. And I can understand why we wanted to keep it tight with I think it's fair to call Davis and Lundstrom more defensively minded midfielders and the back five. But I assumed when I saw the back five that part of the reason for playing that was to try and let Barisic and Tavernier get forward. Barisic did it a bit, although I felt he kind of got 2/3 of the way forward and then would turn around and come back again. Tavernier barely got out his own half. I don't know if that was because tactically Liverpool shut us down, or if he just was having a bad game. What do you think?
I think he had a bad game for a start. I think there was quite a few players that were particularly poor. I've touched on Tillman. I've mentioned the fact that he was played at a position. I think there's a lot of perspective needed about the Liverpool game, and focusing on Tillman for a second. I don't think we'd be in the Champions League had it not been for Malik Tillman, for his importance in both in USG and in PSV. I think he's still a young player and he's developing. I think when it comes to guys like Tav, though, he's your captain, he's your experienced player. For me, the ball looked like a hot potato with quite a few of our players, and Tav was one of them. He didn't have a good game, and it's unfortunate because he's such a key player for us. Lundstrom was another one that didn't have a good game. But in terms of the fullbacks and going forward, I think that was largely how attacking Liverpool were. Klopp mentioned post-match that he threw a curveball with his formation, and I think he assumed that we would go five at the back, and to combat our defensive structure, he went with four aerial players. I think so the player how much forward. Because you remember, Melissa, it's been in the last Champions if embarrassed, they will going to leave exposed. So I think
Dougie, I wasn't sure if your Wi-Fi's playing up a wee bit just now. You've come over all Dalek-like for me there, and I'm not sure if that's just for me or if that's for everyone. So I'll give you a second just to maybe change your headphones there. It's interesting what you were saying there about Klopp. You think Klopp perhaps had an idea that we were going to play a back five. I mean, basically what you're saying is that you and Jurgen Klopp are on the same wavelength when it comes to picking Rangers teams. So don't think I didn't notice that. But certainly I thought tactically, Liverpool had clearly watched us and had a fair idea how we were going to play and did a pretty good job at nullifying that. You talked about King and Davies, and I'll be honest, I didn't think Davies would start. I was a little surprised that Davies started, just purely because I didn't think he was fit enough. I didn't think he was match fit, so I was a little surprised he started. But not a great deal has been said about the fact that Rangers played an 18-year-old who's come through the academy at Anfield against the second best team in Europe last season, and probably the second best team in the world. So I don't think a great deal has been said about that. Rangers have been criticised by some for releasing Balogun. Balogun was a player I liked. I thought he was a reliable guy, a good defender, and a guy who did a good job for us. We've been criticised for releasing Balogun, but to be fair, I think it has allowed Leon King to get into the first team, as injuries have taken out two or three other centre halves. So Leon King has got game time. So perhaps if we look at the bigger picture, that perhaps wasn't the worst idea in the world, letting Balogun go. You mentioned that you thought King had come in and done well. Do you think he's done enough? Do you think he's, once everybody's fit, do you think he keeps his place, or do you think he drops back down again?
I think, first of all, on Leon Balogun, I'm delighted to see Leon Balogun leaving Rangers and doing well. He's obviously playing for QPR under Michael Beale. I wish him all the best. But I think the time was right to move Balogun on. And I think it was right for two reasons. One, he wasn't a player that started every single week for us. We needed to bring somebody in who was going to start on a regular basis. That's why we went and signed Ben Davies from Liverpool. So Davies was actually, for me, Balogun's direct replacement. And we also brought Suter in as well to compete with centre-backs. I think there's a lot of talk about Balogun moved on. It's given Leon King the pathway. I think it's definitely helped. But I think it's circumstantial that Leon King was in the starting 11 at Anfield because of the injuries to Suter and the suspension to Sands, who I think if both were available, they probably would have started ahead of Leon King. But as with most young players, it's these kind of opportunities that they get their chance in the team. And what I've got to say about Leon King is he's taken it. He's done very well since coming in. Whether he'll stay in the team's another story. I think when we look ahead to St Mirren, for example, I think we will play 4-3-3. We'll play four at the back. I think Leon King will step aside. I think Davies will partner Goldson at central defence. But when we're talking Liverpool coming to Ibrox next week, I'm not sure we'll go with five at the back again. And therefore, I'm not sure Leon King will start, but it's got nothing to do with how he's performed. It's everything to do with the tactics that we are playing. But we have a number of very good young players ready to step into that first team squad. We've seen Charlie McCann get some game time in previous weeks, and obviously Alex Lowry was hitting form again for the B team before his injury from Ali Love. But it's good to hear that Alex Lowry is back in the first team, but I think it's still a couple of weeks away before he's ready to play because he needs to get himself up to speed. But Leon King's one of a good crop of young players who, I tell you what, they're going to save us a lot of money in the future because for me, that's what Rangers are all about. It's about bringing players through the academy, giving them their opportunity. Leon King will save us a lot of money, but I'm sure he will make us a lot of money in the future as well.
I think making us a lot of money is what the directors have in mind there, yeah. So, and the reason I asked about whether you thought King would stay was obviously when we needed to when we chose to make a substitution, King stayed on. And it was Davies who was withdrawn. Now, that possibly was to do with fatigue, the fact that Davies hasn't played a great deal of football, but obviously he's the more experienced of the two. And I thought that was interesting as well. We did that. Look, let's move up the pitch a little bit. The other thing that kind of caught my eye and probably caught everybody's eye was the decision to start with Morelos instead of Kolek. Antonio's had an amazing start to the season. I think we were all pleased when we signed him, but we very much saw him as the third choice striker. When fit, we expect Morelos and Roof to be ahead of him. He was there, to come in for when Morelos was injured or suspended, most probably. And he would be on the bench and come on for that difficult game against Motherwell when you need that goal. And of course, it's turned out that what we've signed is a guy who'll touch the ball twice and score 2 goals and not do a great deal else. He's the Croatian, I don't know, I was going to say he was a Croatian version of the Erling Haaland, which is probably pushing it a little bit. It is probably pushing it a little bit. But he's not doing a great deal elsewhere, but scoring goals, which is important. We'll talk about him a little bit more later in the programme. But did it surprise you that we started with Morelos?
I think I'll go for the Croatian Chris Boyd. That's my comparison.
A better comparison, I think,
yeah. Did it surprise me? No, it didn't. I think Antonio Colak is a player that's actually making me eat my words a little bit, because I was a bit like you. I thought he was coming in third, if not second, choice striker. And I wasn't sure why we were paying over £2 million for a guy at the kind of latter end of his career, who's never played in British football, and I had concerns about him settling in. Antonio Colak has hit the ground running, and one of my mates actually asked me the other day of he's the most natural goal scorer since, and we were trying to decide who's the best finisher since, and we collectively kind of mentioned Marco Negri, that he's a player that, because Chris Boyd, although Chris Boyd was a top, a good goal scorer for us, he wasn't necessarily a brilliant finisher. He was just always in the right place at the right time, and he got a lot of chances, which is always a skill in itself. But from a finishing perspective, when you look at the Hearts game, the 2 finishes from Colak, the header and then the shot from the side, they're brilliant finishes. But I think that's what Colak is. I think he is a penalty box striker. He's a player that's going to play in certain games that you're dominating possession, creating chances. And I don't think that's Anfield. I can already hear RFC 56 in my ear right now when I say I think the Anfield game was perfect for Morelos. I think when you go away to tough grounds like Anfield against top opposition, you need a wee bit more than a penalty box striker. And there was a crazy stat that I was told about Chris Boyd not that long ago, actually. And I'm going to get this massively wrong, but I think...
don't worry about that. Accuracy is never going to be the Bible of this show.
Well, I think when Chris Boyd was at Rangers, we played 12 Champions League games. Chris Boyd only played 1 of them. And I think that's similar to Colak for me. He's a player that's going to suit a lot of games in Scottish football, but going to Anfield's not one of them. I think that's what it suits Morelos. I think we needed someone who was going to chase the ball down, bully defenders, hold the ball up, win his free kicks and get us up the park. Historically, that's Morelos' game. But we know he's just returning from a long-term injury and it wasn't his best performance. I think we need to get Morelos up to speed to make the impact in these kind of games, but I think he was still the right choice to start. I think he needs to get the minutes to get himself fit.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of pass marks and who played well, for me, McGregor and McGregor had a great game. Goldson, I felt, had a good game. Anyone else get pass marks for you?
Just Leon King. I think you're right to call it Goldson. He gets a lot of stick from us as supporters. But there's a lot of things that go unnoticed about Goldson at times. I always talk about player conditioning. Goldson's a player that you can rely on. I'm going to touch wood here because I'm going to jinx it. But he's a player that you can rely on to play consistently. He's not a player that misses a lot of games. But I think his leadership and his communication's brilliant at the back as well. But it was good to see him have a good game because, let's be honest, the Champions League is probably the main reason why he decided to stay in the summer.
Yeah.
But you've mentioned McGregor. We were last in the podcast together after the Celtic game and we spoke in depth about John McLaughlin. And I think the reason why, if you look at our Champions League games so far, we could beat 4-0, then 3-0, then 2-0. I think the reason why it was only 2-0 against Liverpool was Alan McGregor. I think even at 40 years of age, he's still showing that he is a very, very good goalkeeper, particularly shot stopping. That's his game. But first half especially, he probably stopped about 4 goals in the first half. I think Darwin Núñez was going home that night and seeing Alan McGregor in his sleep and having nightmares. It was a brilliant performance from McGregor. But I think he holds the jersey now. I think he's proven in the last games when he's came in that he is still a top goalkeeper and he will still step up in those moments. And I don't think that's what John McLaughlin's capable of. I think he's a steady keeper, but I don't think he's capable of the moments that McGregor can. I think for me, he was the standout man of the match.
You've jumped ahead a little bit in my agenda, but on that, I mean, I was going to talk to you about that later. If you thought that McGregor was now number one, because obviously we gave McCrory a new contract yesterday or on Wednesday, certainly very recently, and I'm not sure if that came as a surprise to a lot of us. It certainly came as a surprise to a couple of people I know who watch. I have watched quite a lot of B team and development football. One in particular who said that at 15, McCrory looked like he was going to be the best goalkeeper in the world. Everybody wanted to sign him. He just looked like an outstanding prospect. And when he went to, I think it was Motherwell, or Livingston. He went to Motherwell. He went to both of them. I can't remember which one it was. He went to one of them, and it just didn't work. He just didn't. He didn't make it. He struggled to get to make the number one spot his own. He didn't have the season I think that everybody thought he was going to have. And of course, he's now not out on loan. He's now trying to get past McGregor and McLaughlin. You have to say, if you're struggling to get past a 40-year-old and McLaughlin, a player who has been, second choice for most of his career, then you do wonder what the thinking there was. And I don't know if they've given him a contract because they don't feel that the keepers behind him are ready to step up, or whether they do genuinely think that he's there. But like you, I did wonder whether Alan McGregor now has the number one jersey again. McLaughlin was on the bench against Liverpool, so you have to assume he's fit. That being the case, the goalkeeper jersey stayed with McGregor. He had a very good game against Liverpool, I felt. I don't think you can blame him for the free kick, for not getting to that, and you certainly can't blame him for the penalty. So I'm not really sure what more he could do. So do you think McGregor is back to being our number one again, and how do you feel about that?
I do, yeah. I instantly feel more comfortable with Alan McGregor in goals. I really do. It's funny you just mentioned the free kick there, because when I was sitting up, I watched the game in the living room. When the free kick hit the back of the net, I actually, first instinct, thought McGregor should be getting across to that. He's too slow, he's old, he should be getting across to that. And then you watch the replay of it and you think, nah, that's the sweetest free kick that's been hit. And it's one of those kind of hit and hopes where 9 times out of 10 that sails over the bar or hits the wall. It's just that 1 in 10 that's just found the postage stamp, and McGregor's got no chance. But I think he holds a jersey. I do. I was going to say until he makes a mistake, but I think that's unfair. I think he holds a jersey until there's a moment where Gio feels that he can no longer play. But he went through a period last season in the league, particularly, where you thought, I wish he retired in the summer. He's played a wee bit too long, but he's came back in and he's been superb for us. And as I say, I feel much more comfortable. I think it's to do with communication. He's the type of guy that really inspires confidence around him. So delighted to see McGregor back, delighted to see him doing well. On the McCrory subject though, a couple of things. So he had a loan spell in the Championship. A couple of years ago, he was good in the Championship. He then got his move up to Livingston. I think he joined Livingston in the January because he had I was going to say Queen of the South. He had a good 6 months in the Championship.
Queen of the South, yeah, I think he was at Queen of the South.
Yeah, he then got to Livy. He had a good 6 months at Livy. They extended him for another year, but at the same time they signed the boy Striek, expecting McCrory to be number one, and unfortunately for Robbie, the boy Striek turned out to be a very good goalkeeper and kept him out. I'm not sure that's a poor reflection on McCrory, because when you're in charge of a club and you've got a player that's came in and is your player, I think you'll always favour your player over a lone player when he seems to be doing well. And I think that's what happened at 11. It was unfortunate because at that age you want him to be playing regular. But there's two stats about Robbie McCrorie which I just find absolutely hilarious. The first one is that he's the second of the McCrorie brothers to actually play in goals. The first one being Ross, who of course was an outfield player. And the second one was when he was away on international duty for Scotland there. He's the first ever player in Scottish history to be booked before getting a cap. That's a good stat. That's a nice one. McCrorie stats.
Let's hope we have more and better stats to honour McCrorie over the coming few seasons.
Let's hope so. But see on McCrorie though, because I've got a friend in common with Robbie McCrorie, and I actually knew he was going to sign a new contract. So it didn't come as a surprise to me when he did sign his new contract. There's a lot of people assuming that Robbie McCrorie is going to be number one next year. McGregor will retire. McLaughlin has proved he's not good enough. McCrorie will be number one. I still don't think Robbie McCrorie is number one. So. No. I think Robbie McCrorie is there to challenge for number one, and if he gets his chance, a bit like Leon King, he might keep the jersey. But I think he's being kept on for one main reason, and it comes down to European squad registration.
Yeah.
One of the things for Robbie McCrorie is he's academy trained, and he's trained within domestic football. Believe it or not, John McLaughlin, despite being a Scottish internationalist, does not qualify for that because he actually came through the English lower leagues.
Yeah, I was going to say, he just has to open his mouth for you to understand why he doesn't qualify for that.
Well, exactly. So I think Robbie McCrorie's been kept on to be number two next season. Where that leaves John McLaughlin.
Who is number two is the question. Yeah.
I personally, I think McGregor might retire this year. He can only play so long. Somebody needs to tell that to Gianluigi Buffon. But I think McLaughlin is probably not taking his chance. And what I'd like to see in the summer is us go out and sign a goalkeeper and McCrorie be back up to a new goalie.
Interesting. Okay, let's kind of wrap up the Liverpool side of things. I was doing a wee bit of reading earlier in the week, coming on to this. So in 1992, right, so 30 years ago, Liverpool's wage bill was around £8 million a year, and it was the highest in the UK. Okay, and it was interesting because their team, Liverpool had the best team in the world at different times in the 70s and 80s. They were, a tremendous football team and a tremendous football club. But their wage bill was around £8 million. And at that same time, Rangers' wage bill was actually quite close to £7 million and was reportedly the third highest in the UK after Liverpool and Manchester United. Okay, The Athletic reported that Liverpool's current wage bill is over £314 million a year. Okay, which is such an astronomical number that it's actually kind of hard to kind of picture that amount of money. Rangers' wage bill is around £47 million a year. So the gulf between the two clubs now is so big. And I was thinking about it there, and Liverpool in the summer signed Ben Doak, who apparently was Celtic's most exciting prospect. And I've seen Ben Doak play a couple of times for Scotland age group teams, and he is a player. I have to say I was delighted that he left Celtic because he certainly looked a player at that level. And playing amongst people his own age, he really did look like quite a player. And they also signed the Aberdeen fullback as well, who was Aberdeen's best player. Now they've signed both those players for their reserves and youth team. I mean, the boy, is it Ramsey? Is that his name? Calvin Ramsey.
Yeah, Calvin.
He's not getting in Aberdeen. He's not getting in that Liverpool first team. Not for a while anyway. So they're signing players of that kind of calibre as mibbies. We'll sign this guy because you never know. It's no gamble for us.
Yeah,
and it really underlines the gulf between Rangers and Liverpool just now. And I'm using that. There's obviously more than just Liverpool, but between Rangers and Liverpool just now, and it begs the question: having watched us the other night, having seen us in the Champions League this week, having heard what some of the players are saying and what the manager's saying, is there any way that we can compete with Liverpool? Any way at all? What do you think?
I think the first thing is that's why I hate Sky Sports, because there shouldn't be such a gulf in the quality of of these teams and the value of these teams and the wages that they pay. But there is, and actually that's not just England to Scotland, that's England to the rest of the world, because there's just so much money in English football now that they can go in, as you said, they can go and pick out players from the first teams of clubs across Europe and just put them into reserve teams and allow them to develop or loan them out with no intention of playing them that season, just for development to see if they'll turn out to be good. And if they don't, they'll just write it off because they've got so much money they can afford that risk. So English football is just on another league to Scottish football, and it's sad. Liverpool I can excuse because they're a massive historic club. Some of the other clubs at the bottom, you look at Bournemouth, for example, they play in an 11,000-seater stadium, but yet they can still afford, they could probably sell one player that could fund the entire Rangers starting 11, as is the value of players down south. So that's incredible. There is such a massive financial gulf. There's also a massive financial gulf just when Rangers joined the Champions League. We joined as a pot 4 team. I think particularly when you look at our group, you've got Ajax, who we all know the quality of Ajax. I think they're top of the Dutch league again. Liverpool aren't having a brilliant league, but they're Champions League finalists last season. They've still got a world-class team, and you've got Napoli just now that are sitting top of the Serie A and probably the surprise of the league, but doing brilliantly.
Yeah, what a result they had during the week.
Yeah, and I think on that, I think genuinely that shows how well we competed with Napoli when they came to Ibrox, because until the sending off, we gave them a damn good game.
We were definitely going toe-to-toe with them up until that sending off.
We were, but I think in terms of the financial gulf and how we can compete, I think you look to Club Brugge as your inspiration. There was a lot of comparisons to Bruges after we got beat against Liverpool, because Club Brugge beat Atletico Madrid 2-0, and a lot of people look at the Belgian league similar to the Scottish league and think we are on a very similar playing field and think that we should be on a similar level to Club Brugge. I think there's one reason why Club Brugge were able to compete in the Champions League. They're sitting top of their group right now, which does consist of Atletico Madrid. And the reason for that is they've qualified for the Champions League 4 out of the last 5 seasons. So they've had Champions League money consistently for 4 years. That allowed them to spend £50 million this summer on new players. That's the difference, John. I've seen a lot of people talking about, I miss Europa League Thursdays, bring back Europa League Thursdays. And you just need to look at the 2 teams that we knocked out to get to the Champions League. USG beat Braga to go top of the league of their group. PSV, they won 5-1 against FC Zurich. They're sitting second behind Arsenal in their group, with Arsenal coming up next. I think that's a gulf just now between the Champions League and the Europa League. I think there's a bit of reality check for a lot of supporters that it is such a massive gulf. We could have played in the Europa League and we could have had moments like USG and PSV are having right now, where it's good fun to watch. We leave happy. We talk about what a good game it was, and don't get me wrong, the Europa League run last season is the best I've ever experienced as a Rangers fan. But there's only one way we are going to improve. There's only one way that we are going to be able to compete at this level, and that's to qualify for the Champions League consistently. We had to get there this season. This season was almost a launch pad. We had to be in it this season, get the money, take a few hidings along the way, get knocked out. It's for me, third place is still up for grabs. I've not ruled out third place. Anything can happen on Wednesday night against Liverpool. Get teams back to Ibrox and it's a different story. But even if we do finish 4th and we go out, we've benefited from the Champions League money this season. The focus then is qualifying for the Champions League again next season, the season after that. And what you're hoping there is you don't need to sell your best players because you've got the Champions League finances and you can invest in the playing squad. That's the only way we are going to be able to compete. And obviously spending the money wisely. We need to make sure that when we're getting the money from these competitions, that we recruit well. And that's another story altogether, isn't it?
Well, it is indeed. It is indeed. Okay, right. Well, I mean, I think we're all interested to see what it's like at home. I think we're all expecting to play slightly differently at home. The home crowd behind us, you never know. You never know. Anyway, look, let me just have a quick chat with you about St Mirren. But before I get to that, I just need to talk about one of our other sponsors, Zenith Coins. So Zenith Coins are a sponsor of Gersnet. They help Gersnet again. They help us put this together, and we're very grateful for that. They produce the official Rangers Club coin. Each gold-plated coin has a unique serial number engraved on the outer rim and comes complete with a Rangers presentation box and a certificate of authenticity. They're owned by many famous Rangers fans such as Ali McCoy, Derek Johnston, Marvin Andrews, Tom Stoltman, and Gordon Ramsay. I don't know if Aaron Ramsay has one, but Gordon Ramsay has one. They all own the official Rangers Club coin. Now, if you would like to get one, or if you'd like to know more information on one, and Christmas is coming up, and this could be the gift for that hard to buy for person in your life. You can find out more information at www.zenithcoins.com, and there is a discount code, which is GN10. So use that, and you'll definitely be pleased for it. Right, St Mirren. So it was after a sticky period for Rangers. The international break came, and I think we were all a little relieved. Usually I dread international breaks, but I think we were all kind of glad that one had come. And it seemed to work. I thought we were pretty good against Hearts. Obviously, they shot themselves in the foot. The sending off definitely helped us. But we were 2-0 up at that point and in control. And so I don't think it would have necessarily changed the overall result. So a definite return to form last weekend. Just for reasons of showing off, I actually watched the Hearts game with the Central Toronto Rangers Supporters Club. Now, I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure of watching Rangers at 7:30 in the morning, but it was a different experience for me. I've never had to do that before. And on a more serious note, it was interesting for me because you see a lot of it in social media. You hear it when you're talking with friends and things. A lot of folk complaining about who gets away tickets and who's going to get Champions League away tickets, and Gers, what do you call it? The my Gers, and getting loyalty and things like this. There are guys in North America who get up at 6:30 on a Saturday morning, drive across a very big city to stand in a bar that's only selling coffee at that time of day and watch Rangers. So there are different forms of loyalty. And there are people doing that all across the world, and we should never lose sight of the fact that it is a big family. I was made very welcome by complete strangers, simply because I happened to be staying in a hotel 3 blocks away from them, and I'd looked up when I might be able to see the game on the internet. So a big thank you to them for making me welcome. So I watched the Rangers Hearts game there, and I think we all felt it was a return to form. St Mirren, we're playing second against third for the second week running. Being third in the SPFL is a slightly funny thing because you can win 2 games and find yourself third, lose 2 games and find yourself third bottom. It's that kind of league. It's all very, very tight in that kind of middle section. But, to be fair, after a really poor start to the season, St Mirren have turned it round. They've only lost once now since early August. They've kept 4 clean sheets. They've beaten Celtic, and they are the only team this season to do that. The only domestic team this season to do it. So they're sitting third, and they must be full of confidence. So I'm going to ask you to talk to me a little bit about St Mirren, because I want to know is this just simply, they've got Curtis Main and Declan Gallagher in it. So are they just this year's thugs who happen to be putting a bit of a run together, or is there a bit more to them? What do you think of St Mirren this season? Have you had a chance to see them much?
Yeah, I have. And I watched the 90 minutes against Celtic, which I thoroughly enjoyed.
How many times did you watch it?
Well, I watched the goals quite a few times. Do you know what? I watched the replay though of the Leipzig goal getting chopped off and the Celtic celebrations in the away end over in Germany, only for Leipzig to then score less than 60 seconds later. I'll watch that on repeat a hell of a lot more than the St Mirren goals. But
Joe Hart does look like he may be the gift that keeps on giving. Yeah.
Aye, definitely. I think, do you know, see on the St Mirren, on the Celtic game, I know we digress slightly, I'll go on to St Mirren in a second. I think when St Mirren beat Celtic, that proved to the rest of Scottish football that Celtic are not invincible. They can be beaten in Scottish football, and I think it's given us a lift as well. It was a perfectly timed lift to get into the international break, and I think you're seeing that bounce back now after a pretty dire end to the international break. Dundee United was a tough slog at Ibrox. But I'm the same as you. I thought Hearts were much better. But on to St Mirren. What have I seen of St Mirren? Stephen Robinson's a manager, so they're always going to be a well set up team. They're a big team. They're a physical team. But I think against Celtic, they put in the work, and I think that's why they put Celtic under pressure. They worked hard. They worked for each other. And I tell you what, Curtis Main actually had a very good game up front. So they took their chances. I liked your stats. I'm going to give you a different stat about St Mirren though, and I'm going to try and reassure some listeners just now around some confidence I have going to Ibrox tomorrow. You mentioned their form. St Mirren have actually got 3 defeats this season in the league. That's pretty impressive. The common factor behind all 3 defeats was all 3 of them were away from home. So I actually think that St Mirren are a better team at home. And I think it'd be a different game, St Mirren coming to Ibrox, than it would be if we were going to St Mirren Park. Coincidentally, I think the only team that's actually beat St Mirren... what was I going to say? The only team that St Mirren have beat away from home was St Johnstone. Is that right? Oh, I don't know. I've lost.
I think they beat St Johnstone quite recently, actually.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that's coincidentally who Celtic are going to play tomorrow afternoon. So hopefully St Johnstone are a bit better when they play against Celtic. But I think coming to Ibrox is a game changer. I spoke about it already when Liverpool come to town. I was accused of taking drugs before the show by one listener, but
before the show.
Yes, because
to be fair to that listener, Dougie was figuring out he was doing this show with me tonight. Of course, he took drugs. You know, I'm surprised if that's all he took before coming on this show. You know,
John, I don't know if you're watching the comments, but one listener has said it's a very well hosted show tonight. He's got a different feel about it, and he says that John's doing a brilliant job. And
was that Colin? Was that Mrs. McCallum that wrote
that? It was Mrs. Armstrong thanking you for stepping in. But
don't read the comments. Don't worry, I just upset you.
I am. I am reading. St Johnstone did beat St Mirren. You're right. That's where my train of thought was getting lost. Because St Johnstone were one of the teams that did beat St Mirren. They won 3-0. So hopefully that's a good omen, and they go and beat Celtic tomorrow. Who, I tell you what, for Celtic, they'll find it tough adjusting to playing European football then domestic football, especially considering no matter what, Callum McGregor was going to be missing for tomorrow. Originally through suspension, now through injury. These 2 games a week soon take their toll, and I think that's a huge factor of why St Mirren got points off Celtic. And for that reason, I don't know what team to expect when we go to Ibrox tomorrow. I'm thoroughly looking forward to going back to Ibrox tomorrow because it's been a while because of the international break. I'm looking forward to going back and seeing some football and escaping a chicken pox ridden house. But I don't know. The
people who sit beside you at Ibrox will be delighted to see you there.
That's my dad. So he's on childcare duty next week anyway, so he's fine. But I'm looking forward to being back, and I don't know what team to expect. For me, I think the league is our bread and butter. I keep going on about it, despite Alex Anderson saying that he likes steak and chips. He wants it all. I loved his preview pod before Liverpool. Alex's passion for Rangers and in particular football in general was superb. His discussion about going to Anfield and playing in front of the Kop was brilliant. I think we only had one shot in front of the Kop as well, and it was a bit of a sclaff. So it's a shame that Rangers didn't romanticise that moment for him. But for me, with it being our bread and butter, I don't actually expect a too dissimilar starting 11 to what we played against Hearts. As I said, I expect us to go back to 4 at the back. I expect us to take the game to St Mirren. I think we'll show respect to St Mirren because they are sitting third place. But I do think it'll be a very different game to midweek against Liverpool. And I think with St Mirren come to Ibrox, I think that's a game changer as well.
Yeah. So there's a couple of big decisions for him to make. I think we've already covered that we think McGregor will start in goals, and you've already mentioned that you think that Davies or Sands will come in to partner Goldson. I actually think King's going to keep his place, but we'll see. Up front, we touched upon it, and you, I think you explained it very well. Again, for me, I think Morelos is the better all-round forward. I think he is still the best forward player at the club. He's clearly fit again, although maybe missing some match sharpness. He obviously scored last weekend when he came on, and I think his all-round game is better than stronger. But how do you drop Kovac just now? He scored 2 last weekend. He's been in great form since he came in. He is a guy now that's proven that he can score in the SPFL, which, as you said, is our bread and butter. These are the games we have to win. He's shown, touchwood, a good temperament for the league here. He seems to be building an understanding with the players around him. They now seem to be finding him. They understand the runs he's going to make. How do you... And it's interesting, and I don't know if you've had a chance to see any of the manager's press conference today, but he was asked the question, can they play together? And Van Bronckhorst is... Van Bronckhorst usually quite calm, usually quite measured in his answers. He tends not to give a great deal away. And I thought he gave a very political answer when he said, yes, of course they can if the circumstances are right. Are the circumstances right against St Mirren? Do you see them both playing, or do you think he'll pick one, and which one, if that is the case?
I think it's a very coy answer from Gio. I think my interpretation of Gio's comments is they won't start together in any games. Yeah. It's more if you're 2-0 down against St Mirren, as Celtic were, for instance, you would throw on Morelos and Čolak together to put pressure on and try and get goals. That's my interpretation of it. I don't think they'll start together. I agree with you. I think Morelos is a better all-round striker, but I think Čolak holds the jersey right now. I'm with you. I think he's performed so well that he's earned the right to hold that jersey. And how does Morelos get back in? The only way Morelos can get back in is by earning the jersey. He needs to take the chances when he's back in the squad. Tomorrow's a very different game to Liverpool at Anfield. Tomorrow's a game where we should dominate possession, we should create chances, and therefore for me it is a no-brainer. Čolak should start tomorrow, and I fully expect that he'll continue to put the ball in the back of the net. Yeah, I think Čolak will start as well, actually. Another guy who I thought did quite well against Hearts was Matondo. I thought he had a pretty decent game against Hearts. I've not been a fan of his so far this season. I just look at him and I think I just worry that he's one of these boys who has all the ability in the world, loads of pace, but just somehow or other can't put that into playing as a professional football player. And I may be doing him, you've seen these kind of guys before. I mean, to be fair, we've had 3 or 4 of them over the last kind of 5 or 6 years, usually on loan from somebody. The lad we had last year for Man United, whose name's gone completely out of my head. He was kind of, he was a similar kind of player, because you could see there's skill, there's speed, there's all sorts of stuff in there, but he just didn't seem to be able to turn that into something that actually made a difference on the pitch often enough. And I was a little concerned when I saw the first few times I saw Matondo, there was going to be something similar. He maybe flatters to deceive a little bit. However, he came into the game against Hearts, which surprised me. I didn't expect him to start. And I thought he did pretty well. I also thought that when he came on against Liverpool, and I caveat this, it's a big caveat. He came on with 15 minutes to go or so. He's fresh legs. We're already 2-0 down. He's got carte blanche to run at them. They're maybe, tiring a little bit. But even with that, I actually thought he did okay when he came on. I thought the substitutes, when they came on, they actually did liven us up a wee bit. And, the last 10, 15 minutes, I thought, well, we had a goal at least. Has he done enough to keep his place in the team? Do you think he can start? Do you think he's done enough to warrant another start against them? Yeah, I do. I'm a bit like you. I'm one of these fans that tends to judge a player too quickly. And when Matondo first came through...
That's just part of being a Rangers supporter, Dougie. Absolutely. I mean, my preferences in players can switch from pass to pass, far less game to game. Absolutely. Don't apologise for that.
Well, I wrote Matondo off. I genuinely thought there's not a player in there. I thought he's got the pace, but I didn't see much else from his game. I couldn't see why we'd signed him until Hearts, I think. What's interesting is John Bennett, our vice chairman, came out and asked the supporters to judge players at the end of the season. It's unfair to judge players like Matondo, who's came from a foreign league. I know he's Welsh, but he's never played in Scotland. He came from Germany, but he'd been playing in Belgium on loan. He's still a young lad. I think he's only 21.
Yeah, absolutely, he's young. And an experienced player as well.
Yeah, he is. And John Bennett basically said, judge these guys at the end of the season, not after a couple of weeks. And I'll be honest, I kind of scoffed at that and thought, I can tell already Matondo's not good enough to be a Rangers player. But that Hearts game gave me hope. I thought, during the Hearts game, there's enough signs there to show there's a player in Matondo. He set up one of the goals well. It was a good through ball, I'm sure, to Cholak for the second one. It was a good through ball. I think he played better in the first half. But Liverpool, I think he came on and he actually played better than Kent. When he came on at Anfield, he was direct.
I think I could have come on and played better than Kent, but anyway, we'll not dwell on that. Yes,
but I think he came on. He was direct. He was confident, and he had a very good chance. He nearly scored. He was unlucky actually not to get a goal, which would have been nice to get at least one goal in the Champions League this season. But it's interesting that the whole debate for me just now about Matondo is whether he plays in the left or he plays in the right. He played in the right against Hearts. He played in the left against Liverpool. He probably looks a bit more comfortable cutting in from the left. But in answer to your question, I think he's done enough to start. What's interesting for me is what side he will play against St Mirren. As I touched on already, I don't think the starting 11 will be too dissimilar. And therefore, I think Kent will play in the left. I think Matondo will play in the right. I'll be honest, I'm looking at the comments just now and I can see there's a lot of people saying that Kent doesn't deserve to start. Sakala needs, has earned the opportunity to start. I think us supporters have got, we're a fickle bunch, Rangers fans. We've got short memories. I think Ryan Kent's a very good footballer and he's been excellent for Rangers. He's had some huge moments for us.
Yeah.
I actually think he started to look a wee bit more himself post-international break. He obviously got the assist for Cholak against Hearts. He got his goal as well. I think he showed signs against Liverpool of his confidence coming back. He wasn't always cutting it back and passing back. I think the issue against Liverpool is there was nobody else up with him. So he had nothing else on, which has been my defence of Kent this season a few times. But he needs to do more for others to defend him as well. But I think he'll start because I think Kent's a player that we need to get back to the Ryan Kent that we know is in there. We need to get the top left winger that we have at the club back firing again and performing. And therefore I would start Kent. But you know what? It's good that we are now considering Matondo and Sakala, because for a long time I was thinking, are we going to have to be playing Scott Wright at right wing or Arfield at right wing? Because neither of Matondo and Sakala were contributing. So it's good that we've got those options again. It's a squad game. We're going to rely on the squad a lot throughout the season.
Absolutely.
And we're going to rely on the squad during games. If we go to St Mirren, St Mirren come to Ibrox tomorrow and it's not going our way, it's good to know that we've got the options on the bench as well. And I think there's a place in the squad right now for Sakala, and I think he's got a big say in matters between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, quite possibly. Okay, I'm going to wrap us up very quickly. We touched upon them earlier. Celtic play at lunchtime. Does that make a difference psychologically to the players or even to the support? If the support, we'll all roll into Ibrox tomorrow. We'll know what the Celtic score is. We'll know whether they've dropped points or whether they've stretched the lead again. Does it make a difference? Do you think playing before? Do you think that's an advantage or a disadvantage?
I think it makes a difference if they drop points. I think if Celtic drop points tomorrow, then it gives everyone in the ground a lift. Yeah. The atmosphere will be electric. The players should be banging up for it. But I think if they go about their business and they get 3 points, I don't think it makes much of a difference at this stage of the season. I think it's the old cliche. We just need to focus on ourselves, get the 3 points and keep it going. But I was on with yourself after the Celtic game when we got beat. And I said at that point, there's a long way to go in the season. There's a lot of points to be won and lost. And I tell you what, I don't like to see professionals pick up an injury. And I wish, a lot of people might disagree with me here. I wish Callum McGregor a full recovery, a speedy full recovery from what appears to be an ACL injury, the same as Yanis Hadji. So it's looking a serious one. Right. But while Celtic are without Callum McGregor, their captain and a really influential player, I think that weakens Celtic. There's absolutely no question that weakens Celtic. You've got the likes of the Joe Hart blunder midweek as well. That'll be in his head. The confidence of Joe Hart will go down. They had to rotate players against St Mirren previously because they had the midweek game. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised if Celtic drop points again before we play them next in the New Year's game. So it's just up to us to keep focused, keep winning our games, keep the pressure on Celtic regardless of their results. And I think if we can win all our games, I keep saying the Ibrox factor. Get Celtic to Ibrox in the New Year's game, and if it's still, I think it's 2 points in it just now in the league at the moment. If it's still 2 points in it, come New Year, I'm confident that we will be top of the league.
And on that note, thanks, Dougie. Okay, I'll draw us to a close there. Frankie gave us said, George, see if you can do 35 to 40 minutes. I think we've just done nearly the hour. So we'll wrap it up at that. So just to remind you, obviously, if you've been listening live, then you know where we are. But if you want to let other people know, or if you're looking to tune into future shows, the pod is available on iTunes, on YouTube, on Podcast Addict, Spotify, and all good places where you find podcasts, and probably a few bad ones as well. Who's on during the week? Who's on Sunday night? I believe it is Colin and David Fraser. So a couple of old hands there, bringing you tales from the 70s, and explain to everybody how we'll survive when there's power stations closing and things like that. And Patrick Caskey is coming on as well, so someone will bring a bit of intellectual charm to that show. Talking of intellectual charm, Dougie, thanks for coming on tonight. Appreciate you putting in the effort and coming on and making this go as well as it did. And lastly, from me, it's really just to remind you to, we're not just a podcast. Gersnet has a website with lots of different information on there, and it does have popular forums where you can come on and talk to people with like-minded views, and some people who have entirely different views. I think that all remains for me tonight is to say thanks very much if you've been listening, and if you're listening to this on catch up, I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully we'll have a good result tomorrow, and the guys will have something pleasant to talk about through the week. Thank you and good night.